Hi, today I'm going to be talking with a guy that is an artist and a author of multiple books. The book we're talking about today is one that he has with New Haven Publishing, which is about Jack Kirby. Now I'm going to read you the sales blurb because so we know who Jack Kirby is. The book no comics creator or fan will want to miss. We're all aware of Jack Kirby's legacy, just as we all know the stories about his input into the medium and how he virtually created the look of comics today. In his half-century career, it's been estimated that Jack wrote and drew almost 40,000 pages of comic book art, a staggering achievement. Added to that fact is that he continually changed his style to produce fresh and exciting work, gives us the measure of a man's imagination and powers. Moreover, and almost single-handedly, Jack wrote, designed, and illustrated the look of the American comic book. From 1937 until 1983, Jack created or co-created a multitude of magical and mythical characters such as Captain America, the Silver Surfer and Galacticus, Challengers of the Unknown, the Fantastic Four, the Hulk, Nick Fury, Black Panther. The list goes on and on. It's endless, as the characters are timeless. Although other creators had an incredible impact on comics and sequential medium in general, none were or have been more profound or everlasting than Jack Kirby. Stunning stories and concepts, complete pencil pages of ideas, stories, and characters, all from Jack's limitless imagination, all put down on paper. British artist and writer Glenn Fleming twice travelled halfway around the world to Thousand Oaks, California, to visit the great man and his wife, Roz, spending over 10 hours with the King of Comics, speaking at length about his life and career. The culmination of these visits morphed into this book, Jack Kirby, A Personal Journey, Words and Pictures. The book also boasts over 40 photographs of Fleming with the Kirbys, intimately discussing Jack's art and life in an unforgettable dialogue between the two men, one the master creator, the other a fan. Now, I'd like to introduce you to the fan, the author and illustrator, Glenn B. Fleming. Hi, Glenn. How are
Hi,
you?
Teddy. How are you doing?
I'm
What a great introduction.
Thank you.
Nothing to do with me.
It was a lot about Jack Kirby, actually.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get that across.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna, ask you some questions because obviously it's in the sales blurb that you met the great man. But let's go back to when you were younger. What was it? Did you read comics as a child?
Oh yeah. I used to read comics all the time. I used to write and draw my own. I was lucky. See, I had two older brothers, so they had the money to spend on comics, and I didn't have any money. But I used to get them to get the comics I wanted, and we used to read things like Eagle, Dan Dare. You've heard of those?
Yeah.
And then in the mid-60s, there was a comic called TV Century 21, which was basically a vehicle for Jerry Anderson's stuff, Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet. You've seen those.
Yeah.
So, but they were, those strips they drew the characters, the marionettes that are in those shows as real people. They had the same face, but the proportions were real.
Yeah.
And they used to produce this beautiful color artwork. And then my brother Martin came home one day with an American comic called Strange Tales, and it was just knocked me out. I'd never seen these American comics before, and I remember that I think it was on the fourth page of this comic, there was an advert for others that was similar, and I said to him, "Did they have those in the shop?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, can you get them?" So he did, and then these were those comics were the first comics I'd seen that had credits on them. So it told you who wrote it, who drew it, who inked it, who lettered it, all this kind of thing, you see. So, and this name Jack Kirby was just all over the place. And that's when I discovered his artwork and his stories,
Can
So
you
it went
tell
from
us a
there.
little bit about your background? Because you're not just an author, are you? You are also heavily involved in the comic world.
Yeah, I'm an illustrator as well. I've always drawn and written stories. I think I wrote my first story when I was about 9, and that was 20 pages. You know, for a 9-year-old, it's not bad, is it?
That's
And
good.
I wish I had it now, but that's long gone. Yeah, I worked in mainly as a graphic designer in my career, working in advertising and marketing and things like that, doing artwork, illustrations, typography, photography. I've covered a lot of things, but I've always written. Um, I wrote stuff at school. I even did get this when I was 14. They were landing on the moon, and because the teachers knew I was interested in it, and I had this massive moon map, as big as a wall. They had me go in with a piece of dowling wood pointing where Apollo 11 was going to land, and all this kind of stuff in front of the class. So
All right, cool. That
really,
was 1969, right?
yeah, really
Yeah.
embarrassing. Yeah, yeah,
So I think everyone can relate to being interested in comics growing up in the 60s,
yeah.
70s, even the 80s. But it's like very sort of a child thing. But did you, like go away from it for a while and then get back into it? And if you did, how did that happen?
Well, this is the thing about comics, that I think they're much maligned. There are a lot of comics for children, but the ones I was reading were a bit more mature than that. Like, if you imagine, I don't know what comics you get in Sweden over there on the continent, but you get things like Tintin, don't you, and things like that,
Yeah.
and Asterix and all that kind of thing. And those I think are for children mainly. But the things that Jack Kirby was putting out were quite serious stories in their way. And I think it's a malign medium, and I think the word comics doesn't do it any good, because people think they're immediately for children, and they're not. And the stuff I write they're not. That's not for children.
No.
It's a malign medium, I think, and people should spend a bit more time looking at the sequential artwork that's produced.
It's really good for, if you think about children who are learning to read, because it
Yeah,
stimulates them, because they need that visual.
yeah,
But the fact that it's become such a huge medium for grown-ups, and
hmm,
it's bled on over into films and superheroes and whatnot.
yeah,
Um, I'm going to go back to the fact that this book is so personal to you because you spent so much time with
yeah.
Jack Kirby. How did that happen? How on earth did you come into contact with him?
Well, what happened was that I read a lot of his work, and then let me just go back a little bit just to fill it in. When I was
Yeah,
about 16, 17, I was discovering other things, in life, and I went to art college and things like that. So I left comics behind.
yeah,
And then when about in the early mid 80s, I was in my mid 20s, and I looked at I went into a shop and I saw some comics, and I recognized Jack Kirby's work, and I wondered if he was still alive, because he would have been sort of 60, getting on to 60, then 70, and I just wondered whether he was still alive. Anyway, so a couple of years later, I went on holiday to Barbados, and I met these Americans, and they were from California. They were getting married, and I was talking to them, and I remembered that in one of Kirby's last comics I'd seen, he'd moved to California to a place called Thousand Oaks, and I asked them if they lived near Thousand Oaks, just out of the blue, and they said, "Yeah, it's about an hour away, because everywhere's an hour away in America." And so I decided that the following year I was going to go to stay with them, the Americans, and I asked them if I got in touch with Jack Kirby, could he go and see him. And Suzanne, the American girl, sent me a letter when they left, and they sent me a letter, and it said blah blah blah, nice to meet you, and all this kind of stuff. And then it said, here's Jack Kirby's phone number.
oh
He
my
said
gosh,
he says hello and hopes one day he can draw as well as Glenn can, which is obviously a joke. So
yeah,
I came home every night with looking at this letter for about 3 weeks, and my former partner said to me, because this is the days before contract phones and mobile phones. This was a landline, and
yeah,
overseas calls were expensive. And
yeah.
every night I'd come home from work and just look at this number. And she said, look, just ring it. And if it's not him, just put the phone down. So I did. And it was. and his wife answered the phone and put him on. And I'm like, wow, just all of a sudden I'm talking to this guy. And I told him I was coming over. And it was funny because I was 32 when I made the call. And he asked me how old I was. I think he thought I was probably about 15 or something. Because he said to me, are you coming with your parents? You know, I said, no, I'm not coming with my parents. Anyway, so I went over to see him and had lunch with him and spent all afternoon in his studio talking outside with his pool, and just had a fantastic time. But when I first got there, we had lunch and I couldn't speak. I didn't say anything for half an hour. And he kept asking me what my name was and why I was there, you know, just a joke, trying to bring me in. Everybody else was getting on really well, and I was just sitting there like I couldn't eat, I couldn't speak.
Oh wow!
But it was okay later.
Yeah. So you were there. Did you take photos and film that time around, or was it? It was.
Well, the first time I was a bit disappointed because I borrowed a camcorder and it broke down.
Oh no!
So I got the guy Bob from California. I asked him if he'd film. I didn't want to be filming. I wanted me talking to Jack being filmed. So he said yeah, and he couldn't get it to work and it broke. And then I've still got it. He's clearly holding it just down by his side, thinking it's not working, and it comes on, and I've got his foot for about 10 minutes.
Oh no!
But anyway, so I took a load of photographs, which are in the book. There's about 45 photographs in the book, and you know, and again, if I'd gone today, it would have been digital, and there'd been thousands of them, but that's not the way it was then. And they're all in the book. And then the second time I went, 3 years later, I did actually take a camcorder that worked, and I produced this film, which is of me talking to Jack. There's about 45 minutes of me actually talking with him in his studio. So
where can people get if they want the film? Where can they buy it?
They have to get it from me.
Oh, okay.
It's only available from me.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just a fantastic experience, and I wanted to stay later. And you see, the way I am, I only took, on the second trip, I only took one magazine per film, and I should have taken 10, because when it ran out, I was there for another 3 hours.
Yeah.
And we could have been filming that, but I don't like to intrude on people, you see. I mean, you know, I didn't want him to be thinking, who's this guy, get out, you know. So I just took this 45 minutes of it, and I could have taken more, which I should have done, but, you know, what you know at the time, you know. So that's a shame.
You made the film, and what sort of made you want to do a book? Was that the 100 years birthday of? It would have been 100.
Yeah. In 2016, I obviously knew that in 2017 would be Jack's centenary. He's died. He died in 1994, and I thought, well, I've got this. You see, when I do my traveling, I always take extensive diaries, and I've got a good memory anyway. People tell me I've got a fantastic memory, so I can remember a lot. But I also sometimes need jogging, so I keep a diary and I'll write situations down. So I still had all those notes, and I had the film. I had all this stuff, and nobody had ever seen it. So I thought, well, it's his 100th birthday coming up, so we'll do some kind of celebration. So I wrote the book from my memories and my photographs and my diary, and then I edited the film. And I showed the film's premiere was at a place called Oldham near me. They have a library theatre, big screen, and there was about 40 people invited to that special screen, and they all came and looked at it and all this kind of thing. I'll tell you something that's really daunting and you don't sort of realise. I'm in the audience, and the film comes on, and then I realised my head is going to be 15 feet high. Do you understand what I mean? And I'm thinking, oh my God, you know.
I see. Yes.
So imagine that's how these film stars behave.
Yeah.
The first time, anyway. You know, they think, wow, that's me up there. It's really embarrassing. It's not good. I'm not embarrassing on it. I'm just saying it's embarrassing for me to see it, and all these people are looking at, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
I get it. So, but you didn't do the book then, did you? You waited.
Yeah, the book came out later, but well, it was a companion type of thing. The book came out after the film. Yeah, the film was first, and then I decided to do the book, and then you got involved and very kindly published this one. There you go.
That is. So the book is an extensive chat between the author, Glenn Fleming, and Kirby, and you can get it anywhere you buy your books normally. It's available worldwide, and it's got color interior and lots and lots of images. And you can also go onto our website if you want it directly from us, or you can contact Glenn on Facebook. Just send him a message if you want a signed copy. So
you can do that, yeah.
No excuses not to read it. It's a really,
right.
really good read.
And it's also got, after I'll just say this, after the film, we had a Q&A with other artists about Jack Kirby, and that is on the film. That was filmed. It's on the back end of me talking to Jack, and the transcript is also in the book as well. Everything's in the book and everything's on the film. So check it out.
So they will come and find you when they want to have their signed copy or even to buy the film.
Yeah.
Be talking to Glenn again soon, because he is a man who doesn't do just one book. He's got several. So thank you.
Thank you.